Yo, everybody, what's going on? Welcome to episode 19 of Value Town. I'm your host, ChanManV. And joining me as always is my co-host each and every week, Trump. What's going on, buddy?
Hello.
As you can tell, Crip's not here today, guys. He's got duties in Berlin, so he'll be back next week. But I figured since Crip's not here, we'd try to sneak in a constructed episode of Value Town, and what better way to do that than with our friend and our liquid value brother, StrifeCro. What's up, Strife?
Hey, what's up?
Excited to get a chance to talk about meta and stuff with you, man, since you seem to always have a deck that's current in meta or defining
Well,
meta.
I'm excited to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. But any big news this week for you guys? I know, Trump, you've been playing in a lot of those King of the Hills this week, and doing pretty well. At least the first one with Artosis, and the last night was a pretty good one. Don't want to put spoilers for anybody if they didn't see it. But how's that been?
Yeah, I agree. Those are fun. I think both ones. I think the second one was actually more exciting than the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, the one that's actually released. This week, I've been doing a pretty ambitious project, which is to try to get Legendary with a new account from last week.
I thought
That's
you
been a
had
lot
it
of fun.
last night, man. I was like watching.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, he's gonna do it tonight. He's gonna do it tonight. But
That's right, rank 1.
Yeah, I'm at rank 1. Hoping to hit it today.
Yeah, I think you should. You definitely should. But we're going to definitely talk about that deck. That's one of the things we're going to be doing today. So we'll start off by talking about current meta, just these guys' thoughts on it, and myself, and then we'll follow it up into talking about some of Strife's decks that he's playing right now, and then Trump's Mage decks, both the budget one and the non-budget one. But yeah, so let's talk about meta. What do you guys think of Season 3? Kind of started off, it's almost been a month, well, it's been about 3 weeks now, and the season started off really jumping off with, I would say, like Kalento's Miracle Rogue, and then carry over from the Druid, Strife's Druid, and then Murloc started to emerge. Are you guys seeing anything different in the recent meta? Any kind of cool findings?
Well, I think the game is, even though there's still some problems that people have, especially with, like, say, Nat Pagal or Kinkmaster, I think the game is better than it ever has been. Like, it constructed right now is, like, it's really diverse, and it has a pretty healthy meta game where it's really like nothing is too dominant, and you just pretty much have almost every class show up, even at the highest parts of the ladder and even in tournaments. So, yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of different decks. It's not really dominated by anything, I feel.
Trump, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. By the way, StrifeCro, you're playing on North America primarily, right?
Yeah,
Well,
I don't have
okay.
a Europe account.
Alright, so I've had the interesting experience of playing on Europe and hitting a lot of the legendary players as well as just like high-ranked players. And I agree, it's really diverse. There have been quite a few surprises for me, ranging from like Super Paladin aggro to Hunter Control to...
Yep.
There's a bunch of interesting things out there right now. And I'd go as far as to say, I agree with StrifeCro, like all the classes are pretty well represented, with maybe the notable exception of Priest. And
Yeah.
I am giving the Mage the Trump bump.
That's right. That's right. It's funny because like everybody, everybody watched Fight Night and just watching I guess Crip and Artosis talk about your Mage, and they're calling it weird and everything, and I don't know. A lot of it seems to make sense. I can't wait till we talk about it just a little bit later on in this episode. And obviously, you're proving that you can have a lot of success with it. But laddering up, Trump, especially recently, you've been able to kind of go through just the ranges, like in the ranking, just the non-legendary rankings. Where do you see like the cutoff? Like, where do you see trends of like crazy aggro? Because that tends to happen like when you're laddering up, and then where it just kind of stops, and then you start seeing more, I don't know, more control or more of what you would see in Legend.
It's everywhere. You're gonna face aggro everywhere from rank 25 to legend. The aggro decks get sharper and more fearsome, and they go for the face more often as they should than trade for your minions. Or they basically play the aggro deck more correctly as you rank up. And You do see slightly more control in the upper levels just because it's tough to play control in the lower levels, I guess.
Because of just the the crazy presence of aggro.
It's more of it's hard
like
to
a skill
play it
thing.
correctly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's nothing. I mean, it's easier to play control if you're as good as you are in a lower ranking. It wouldn't be harder, you know. It's
Right.
just because it's a
Mhm.
little bit harder to play the deck.
I see.
Because the aggro decks get sharper as you move up too, so there's
Mhm.
no way it's harder to survive in the lower brackets as control.
How often do you see priests? Because you guys brought up priest a little bit, or Trump, you brought up priest, and I think it's kind of accepted as being one of the weaker classes right now, and even though it's fairly balanced, just everything. Do you see a lot of priests in Legend, Strife, and maybe ranking up, Trump?
No.
No, none at
I
all.
haven't seen one. Haven't seen one in a while. When I said it was relatively balanced, I mean like before, you know, it was literally maybe one or two classes. At least now it's like five or six, maybe seven. It's not like everything. I haven't seen Priest in a long time.
Trump, how about you?
I have seen Priest, and um, I think it's a class that I'm not going to judge as bad yet. I just think it's underrepresented. Of course, it's
Um,
underrepresented.
Yeah.
I think you can build a good Priest deck. I think you can rank up the Legend with it, and people have done it. It just
Yeah.
seems to not be very popular.
Yeah, I've been actually playing some priest. I haven't played a ton this season, but I've been trying to only play priest and rogue this season, and kind of taking the approach where I just try everything, whether it's good or bad, just to really, really understand the class. And yeah, it's pretty difficult, but I do have to say, I think inner fire is actually a bit underrated. I think it's always been used for like combo wombo type of things, but I've been finding it working out pretty well, especially with Pagel. You know, so prevalent, and obviously the cleric is good for inner rage. But it seems to be, I think, a decent utility card that has pretty good value too. I don't know. What do you guys think of inner fire?
Well, I would argue that Inner Fire on Cleric is a very weak use of one mana card. I mean, people
Really?
generally
Okay.
don't even use Blessing of Might, which is one mana for three power, and on the Cleric it's only two attack for one mana, one card, which is, I mean, Cold Blood is plus four attack with the combo, and even without the combo, it's plus two attack. So
It's
you know,
got.
even on a Nat Pagel,
Mhm.
it's when you get a plus four, it's only as strong as a comboed Cold Blood, which is pretty strong, but it's not like so amazing that it's a good card because of the fact that you can only really use Inner Fire on stuff that has what like more toughness than power to begin with, and by quite a bit before it's effective. I'd say if you get like four, like you know something like a 1/5 or 0/4, it's like decent. If obviously you get anything more than that, like a 0/5, it starts being good. But I mean, how often are you really getting five attack from a Inner Fire? You know.
Trump thoughts?
Yeah, I was actually going to. Well, I wanted to interrupt StrifeCro, but I'm too polite for that. For the when he said I haven't seen a lot of Blessing of Might, I've actually seen a lot of Blessing
I've
of
seen a
Might.
ton of blessing might too.
I don't know if that's EU specific thing, but I've run into a lot of aggro paladin, which is also a bit of a surprise. But
Okay.
let's see.
I've played against
The truck deck is good. I mean, it's one of the decent
the
aggro
Divine
decks out
Favor
there.
one, right?
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, the Divine Favor and just, I mean,
A lot of
just
stuff.
everything you would think of basically.
Yeah.
It's not like old six that kind of Divine Favor type of thing or miniatures. It's a little different with a lot more Blessing and Mights and it's got the swords. What else? What are some other things it's got? It's got
It also
Deck
seems to
hands.
vary a lot. Like it can have it can
Yeah.
have Get Down, it can have Redemption, it might not have it.
yeah,
There's diversity in that as well.
yeah.
Um, what were we
But
talking about? Oh,
Inner
Inner
Fire,
Fire.
Inner
It
Fire.
sucks.
What you think?
The card sucks.
You
The
think the
problem
card
is, uh, actually, I've seen some aggro priests as well. That was really interesting. And maybe in an aggro.
Case is
Well,
friendly.
the problem is if you're playing an aggro priest and you're using Inner Fire to buff Nat Pagel, you're probably doing it wrong because aggro doesn't like to run Nat Pagel. And
Well,
Inner
it's not.
Fire to debuff your opponents is also sort of weak. it's an interesting utility card, and I think it's fairly costed, and maybe, I mean, it's more appropriate for the Divine Spirit Wombo combo, I'd say.
Yeah,
Power
definitely,
Shield, so.
definitely for that. I just thought it was kind of interesting that you could, because a priest with a lot of the cards are really strong against aggro. With like cleric, especially at turns 1 and 2, they have a lot of answers right for aggro, and having the ability to kind of transition some of those cards into mid game, making them like a 4/4 or 5/5 in some cases with Power Word Shield, is kind of interesting, and then it actually works well with like Ysera too. But I just thought that people don't talk about it much, but you guys obviously still think it's bad, so I think it's kind of interesting. Let's see. What do you guys think of the Murloc decks these days? Because I've been seeing some more taunt, like Argus in Murloc of all things. Like, what's going on there?
I think their Murloc decks are getting more refined now. Um, People used to just build Murloc as like a complete like bum rush deck, but I mean it's still kind of like that. But I think that using too many cards like Power Whelming in Murloc isn't actually that great because like kind of like the way Murlocs work is if you can kind of stick them on the battlefield, then they get progressively stronger and stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Like they all buff each other and they have a lot of synergy. So if you can kind of have cards that you can keep them alive with, like more going towards board control instead of just burst and face damage, then your Murlocs basically having a higher chance of your Murlocs like sticking around is really beneficial. I guess Argus is kind of like that, buffing up the Murlocs.
Mm-hmm. Right. Trump, thoughts?
Yeah, Murloc decks are prevalent in every rank, 25 to Legend, and
Yeah, I mean,
there are a lot of
I think
different ways to play them.
yeah, I think the aggressive one we've seen the aggressive ones just lots, especially this season. But yeah, just the more board controlish type, I was really surprised about it recently, and some really good players have gotten really high with them too. So it's really
I
high.
believe Shadowflame is making a comeback for Murloc.
Yeah.
I've seen people
Mm-hmm.
use Shadowflame now on Murlocs
Which
because
is
it's pretty good board control. Like if you do have board control, you can. It becomes pretty efficient, I guess, depending on how big your creatures are.
right. Yeah, like you said, there's just so much synergy between them. I think there's probably more synergy between that type of card than any other card in the game, right? I mean,
You
any
mean
other
Murloc? Yeah, they
category of
buff each
cards.
other are
Yeah,
ridiculous
yeah.
now.
So yeah, we should be seeing some more Murlocs in the near future. I don't know what they can really do about it either. It's probably the best aggro deck right now. Would you say? What do you think?
Yeah, maybe. It's either that or Hunter. It's pretty close.
Really, you still
It's
think
hard
Hunter is?
to it's hard to say if a deck is quote unquote best. I'd say there's like a strong first way tie between Paladin aggro, Warlock aggro, Hunter aggro, some other aggros. Like there's the Murloc aggro, and then there's even just Warlock aggro without the Murlocs. Um,
Yeah, that's not as strong though. I mean, the times I've faced it,
well, I mean, it's strong against different things because the aggro without the Murlocs is less vulnerable to like big area of effect clears and or just being able to stay up because the Murlocs are individually weak, but together they are strong. Whereas if you just have basic cards such as Harvest Golem, which Murlocs don't always run, but some of the aggro Warlocks without Murlocs run it,
yeah.
then they're more sturdy.
Okay.
Yeah, and it
I agree with
also
that, Tr-
a lot of decks are designed to like remove creatures as they come on, like come up with like a lot of spells. Murlocs are kind of weak to that because they kind of need to build up. If they just have too much like single target removal for example, like War Axe could ruin your day, stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So control decks prevalent on the ladder right now. Are there any new ones that you've seen? Trump? Start with Trump.
Yeah, the big new one is the Mage control deck.
Yes! Who came up with that one?
I'll take some credit for that one. It's pretty generally good because it's got a lot of efficient removal. It's got the big one, the Flame Strike.
Yep.
And Water Elemental is really good, as it turns out.
Yeah.
I think everybody's known it's been really good, but it's been always the enigma why it wasn't played very much in constructed. All right, so Mage, StrifeCro, any other control decks you've seen that have been interesting?
Uh, I mean, like you said, like all the classes are played, and all the classes like have like a control deck pretty much. Like you even said, like you've seen Hunter control.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's only really X amount of classes. I think it's 10, and when you do build your class towards a control deck, they're generally all similar concepts. You know what I mean? It's not like one particular Druid control deck is very different than another. It's more like you just have to make up your mind that you are playing control deck. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
same thing on Shaman or whatever. So for Priest, so it's like there's not like there can only really be 10 control decks if there's 10 classes. Like it's just how to build it the best. So.
Man, that is the most general answer I've ever heard.
So I don't know how to answer it because
Well, I mean,
these decks have been around forever and they're just
Yeah.
like the controlled deck of each class. So there's even Warlock control, which is giants. Druid control, these like Yasiras and Sonarises, Ragnaruses. I mean, just like basically big creatures. I don't know.
Trump, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, Strife's right. You can basically build a control deck for any of the 9 classes, and you just have a bunch of... It's incredible!
It's incredible.
Big creatures. Big creatures.
The game is incredible. You can do that. But okay, I guess it's
Hunter
definitely
ones are a
true.
little
I mean,
weird,
it's
I
just
guess.
I would think that some classes are just a little bit more diverse. I mean, can be more diverse just with their powers, that sort of thing. But it is pretty darn close. I think most of the control.
I'm not saying it's
decks.
good for every class. I'm saying it's like relatively doable.
No, I wouldn't
I
even
think
say it's
Rogue-
relatively doable. I'd say it is completely doable with any
Yeah.
class.
Yeah, exactly. I've almost never seen a rogue control class deck though.
Yeah, that's actually one that's very hard to do. I
Not
think
sure.
just
It depends how you want to define a control deck, but I mean, I have seen some rogue decks with Ragnaros, but I think they're fairly aggro as well.
yeah,
I'd actually qualify the Miracle Rogue deck as control, but that may be a misqualification.
oh wow,
It's in that
really?
category.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think everybody generally thinks of it as a combo deck, right? But it definitely has a lot of control elements in the beginning.
Because usually it's not
Yeah.
using creatures. It's more like trying to use spells to remove the other guy's creatures. Then eventually, combo out. I guess.
The style is control for sure, and then, but the cards themselves are, I mean, there's not very many big cards in that, right? There's Edwin and Leroy, and that's about it, right?
Right, but it does
I
spend
Gadgetzan.
all of its
Yeah.
time to like control your minions and try to remove them from the board.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. I never really thought about it like that. It's cool. All right, and kind of following up, just kind of just kind of gone aggro and control, kind of that mid-tempo type of deck that actually Strife you made popular with the Druid, with a lot of the just the Druid everybody knows. What do you think of that style right now? Because I feel like the Shaman is closer to the current Shaman too, or the popular Shamans right now are a little bit closer to that type of deck. Do you agree? Or
Yeah,
no?
the shamans are kind of progressing into more and more mid range as well. I think because shaman, for one, the problem with shaman, or one of the problems with shaman, is there's not really any way to heal. So
Yeah. Mhm.
if the decks are just straight to your face all the time, you're pretty much gonna die at around turns 8 to 10. Like I've almost never played a shaman versus like let's say aggro hunter, that the face smashing hunter, where I've never really survived to like turn 11 or something. It's like almost just pretty much never. Like you just, no matter how the game turns out, you just always die around turn 10. It's either you have to kill them before then or you lose, and that's kind of the reason why I think shamans have been progressing more towards mid range. Because if you do go control shaman, you're still gonna die around turn 10, and
Mm-hmm.
the slower it doesn't matter if you really build up incremental card advantage. It doesn't matter if you're just dead, right? At turn 10, just steady shot.
Right.
So, yeah, that's why. And shamans can like they don't really do early damage. Like they spend their whole early game kind of setting up their board. Like they try to remove your creatures with efficient removal. Like shamans have so many 1 mana removal, rock biter, lightning bolt. Although bolt isn't exactly 1 mana, but and even the Stormforged Axe, and anytime they get kind of free mana, they just kind of spam out totems as their style. It's really like throughout like the mid game, like around turn 5 to 6. Like if you don't have them under control, you can just run. You can get run over by the shaman in like 1 or 2 turns,
Right.
because like Fire Elemental in turn 6 can just be like one of the biggest swings in the game, just based on the strength of the card. Like if they already have like a little bit lead before then from like totems, say, and then you drop like a creature that just gets Fire Elemental, then you're like dropping stuff into totems and a Fire Elemental. In the Fire Elemental, like if they have stuff like Rockbiter and Wind Fury, like one Rockbiter, one Wind Fury, and a Fire Elemental's 18 damage already, so you're almost dead. So
Yeah, it's pretty nice. No, definitely. Trump, thoughts on Shaman? Have you gotten a chance to play some?
Yeah, I've played against a few. Actually, I've met a cool Bloodlust Shaman deck where you just get a lot of guys and you do the Bloodlust. In fact, speaking of getting a lot of guys and then doing something, that Druid deck is also somewhat popular with the on EU.
Yeah,
You get a lot of guys.
Yeah, it's strong.
Yeah, do the Violet Teacher. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. I think I saw that game, by the way, Trump, that you played that Shaman, and hopefully other people saw it. It was actually really cool. Like I learned a little bit just watching you play it. You skipping turns and stuff against it. Was kind of cool. But yeah, so Shaman in general, what do you think about? Do you think Overload is an issue against aggro?
well, it just makes your cards cost more mana later. I mean, inherently, it's not a problem because the overload cards are stronger the turn you play them. Like they're over budgeted for the cost. Like you have to count the overload as part of the cost. So it shouldn't be a problem, because you're having a weak turn next turn to some extent, but you're making it up by having a stronger turn on the current turns. In fact, I'd argue it might even be better against aggro, that kind of thing.
Oh, really?
But,
okay.
I mean, it's pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, the reason I bring it up is just like turns 1 and 2. Generally, the minions aren't, they have very few hit points, right? And a lot of times, like say like lightning bolt, or even axe to a degree, right? You would overhit on them, but.
Well, if you think about lightning bolt as like a frostbolt, it's like some things aren't just not worth frostbolting. Like you're gonna have that problem with frostbolt as well. I guess the real issue is that Shaman doesn't have a way to deal 1 damage with the hero power like Mage and Druid and stuff and Rogue. So stuff that does come out like Leper Gnomes, there's not really too many efficient ways to deal with it. I mean, there is Earth Shock, so I guess that's one reason why people do use 2 Earth Shocks on a lot of these.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't feel that great about frostbolting a Leper Gnome either.
Yeah,
you just don't have to, I guess, with the Mage hero power.
Trump, you agree with I guess those sentiments on Overload?
Yeah, I mean that was sort of a weighted question because is Overload a problem? Yes, it is because you have to pay more mana the next turn. But that's just how
it was mostly. Is it a problem against aggro in particular? Because
it's a problem against everything since you always want to cast more stuff.
Okay, fair. That's true. Okay, well, why don't we go into some of y'all's decks? The decks that you guys are playing on the ladder, and
yeah, sure.
I figured we would switch over to. Let's start with Strife and check out, I guess, the Druid and the Shaman deck you're running. So let's switch over here.